If I were 40 years old and making $100,000, this is the exact plan that I would use in order for you to get financially free. If you're 40 or ish and you're making $100,000 a year, you have roughly 300 to 600 paychecks left before you turn 65. And that's all depending on if you get paid once a month or twice a month. Some of you might get paid more frequently. And most people have already wasted half of those things. So if you don't know who I am, my name is Brian Lessinger. I'm 55 years old. I am financially free. I'm a multimillionaire. And working has been optional for me for years. And I keep working because I love working. And here's the exact plan. If I woke up tomorrow and I was back in my 20s or 30s, or this particular video, we're talking about being 40. And these are the 5 steps I would do in order with real numbers so that you can get to what my definition of wealthy is, what financial freedom is for you. And so that is what we're talking about today, okay? So number 1, you need to stop measuring your income and you need to start measuring your net worth. What does that mean? So a lot of people get tied up in their net worth. So let's just say, for example, I own $1 million home, free and clear, didn't have a loan on it. I was worth $1 million. The only downside to that is none of that money is generating me any revenues. So a lot of people, they get caught up in the, how much money do I make? And making a lot of money is great, but if you have bad habits when you're making 50 grand, you're not going to have better habits when you make 100 grand or 250 grand or whatever it might be. And it's funny how many people talk to me about how once I make more money, I'll save and invest. And you have to remember, your income is temporary. You can get laid off work. You can get fired. You can be someone like me that runs in cycles and seasons. I'm a commission sales agent in real estate. And some years I make more money. Some years I make less money. And remember, income is temporary, and net worth and creating cash flow yourselves, that's more of a permanent thing that we're trying to do. So at 40, of course, your goal should be to make more money, but it's not the number one goal. The number one goal is, how do we start converting some of this money into assets that can continue to increase in value and hopefully at some point cash flow and pay us more money in the first place. So one of the things I want to do is let's figure out what that actual number is. So for me, I have a spreadsheet that I just use in Excel. So between my property management business, between my commercial office building, between my sales revenues and assets I bought in the Midwest, between my retirement accounts, the non-retirement accounts, all these things create a net worth number. But a lot of them also generate an actual cash flow for myself. So we're trying to create these two things. And knowing these numbers and tracking these numbers is no different than if you're trying to lose weight or get healthier and you're trying to track your calories or your food or your gym schedule or whatever it might be. So you need to start thinking not so much of just income, but think of it also as trying to figure out what your net worth. And so for many of you, this is a game where I see all the time where they say, I can afford the payment, they buy a boat, they buy a nice car, they do the nice things, and they're not focused on that long-term game. And it's a weird game. I played it for my whole life, trying to figure out what makes more sense is enjoying that money and enjoying everything right this minute and planning and trying to figure out that long-term wealth building game. So it's a tough game. It's something that people have a difficult time with. And honestly, though, long-term wealth is built in assets and cash flow and things that you can do. Not saying I make $500,000 a year, because that's great. But if you're spending every nickel, and I know people that live paycheck to paycheck, that's what they do. My best friend manages money for lots of people who have lots of money. And when they do that, it doesn't necessarily make them happier. It just makes them more stressed out, because if they stop making the money, then they've got a problem. So you have to figure out this thing. And it's really an easy thing. Your net worth is just basically your assets minus your liability. So let's say, just as a house example that I like to use, if you had a $500,000 house and you had a $250,000 loan, technically on a sheet, you'd have a $250,000 asset. Of course, there'd be costs involved in selling it. So I always think maybe take 90% of that value, whatever the case may be. But you've got to stop with the just income, and start worrying about creating assets. So if you're watching this video, what I'd love for you to be able to do is sit down and figure out what is actually your net worth. So you've got to minus out all those expenses or debts, really, whether it's credit card debts, car loans, boat loans, mortgages. All those things become negatives, and figuring out what the value of some of those things are so that you can know what your net worth is versus just what your income is. All right, so how do we create ourselves a larger net worth? And one of the things I talk about a lot on this is stopping the bleeding. And what I mean by stopping the bleeding is a lot of people, they're not good at managing their money. So what happens is, as you start to make more money, it's really easy to create more financial debts for yourself, because now you can get mortgages and you can get car loans and you can get boat loans and you can overspend because maybe you got a pay raise or a bonus at work and things start to really increase for you. So where we need to start is you need to sit down with all your debts, your credit cards, your personal loans, just overall lifestyle debt. Maybe you're just spending too much money every month and you're not necessarily going into debt, but instead of using that money for saving, investing, and trying to create assets, you're just living the life and you're spending all that money. So whether you have things like overspending for furniture or cars, wherever it is, it's funny, as I'm making this video, I'm right in the process of doing some remodeling at my own house and spending some money. And even though I can afford to do it, it just feels weird to maybe spend some money on some things that I wouldn't normally do. I know I talk about my 2014 Mercedes that I drive, and I'm actually ordered a new car that's coming in August. And so I'm doing some of those things, but all the stuff that I'm doing, I'm actually paying cash for. I'm not going to get a car loan. I'm not going to finance furniture or remodeling floors or things like that at my house. So just realize you've got to get these debts. And you can do this a lot of different ways. I know people, for me, just make a list of all those debts, make a list of all those interest rates on those debts, and then you have to start knocking them off one at a time. It's different if you're using a little leverage for positive debt, where maybe you're buying commercial property or investment homes, or you're using some debt for assets that maybe go up in value. But a lot of people, I'm talking about all these consumer debts that are things that are just going to hurt you. You're not going to be able to get ahead financially if you've got all these high interest debts. You have debts, credit cards, car loans, and these debts are 10 plus, 20 plus, 30 plus %. You're never going to be able to win at this game. So you've got to figure these things out, and just know that creating these assets will help you in the long term be able to live a life you want to live. You just got to have a little bit of time in the beginning and make sure that you are being careful with how you're using all this stuff, okay? Having a large income, listen to this one, okay? Having a large income can hide your money mistakes for years. Because if you keep making more money and you keep having the ability to bail yourself out, which is great that you've been able to increase and keep making more money, you just have to understand that it's not helping you build good habits to build up long-term wealth, okay? So just remember that long-term game is how you're really going to win at this. So the third thing I would want you to do is you have to build up a safety net. I'll give you a little story about what happened the other day. My 2014 car, I had to take it in, had a little oil leak, wasn't sure what was going on. I found out a couple of other things, and before you know it, I literally had about $8,000 worth of things I needed to do that car. And my daughter asked me the question, she goes, Dad, what do most people do if all of a sudden they have an $8,000 repair bill on their car? Now, to be honest with you, this is a car I've loved. I've had for a long time. I've had no car payment for a decade. And I've been putting money away to the side because I knew eventually that this car was going to need some work. Didn't know it was going to be $8,000 worth it, but I had the money in the bank to do it. It sucked. I didn't want to spend it on the car. But most people, this is when you go into personal loans, credit card debt, something bad happens, and now you're screwed because you don't have that money sitting there to be able to do that. Now, I was bummed out. I didn't want to spend that money on it, but I had the money and it was no stress off my back to be able to do it. And so you just have to put those things away. So for me, I think you should have at least 3 to 6 months worth of cash reserves put to the side. I'm more conservative, so I even do more than that. But for people, the more cash reserves you can have, and whether you listen to someone like Dave Ramsey or you listen to other people that tell you should never have any cash at all, I think it just helps me sleep at night. It's better for you. And having that cash that you can go dip into when you need it, it's just a nice thing. So you can put it in a high yield savings account, earn a little bit of interest on it. You can even put it in some really low risk investments in your non-retirement accounts. So there's ways to do that, but don't put it in crypto. Don't put it in an individual stock. Don't put it in something that you could actually lose the money. This is money that needs to be your safety net. And I know, being overly conservative, people will tell you, hey, you should never have any cash around, invest it all. But it's just not the way that for most people would be beneficial to them. I think having that safety net is good. And if it means in the short term, you have to do a little less debt payment off, or you have to do a little less investing in your retirement accounts to just build up a little cash reserve. So if something does happen to you, you're not going to have that be as a problem, then great. I mean, I had a few other things happen to me already this year where I had to do the root canal. By the time I did the root canal, that was a $5,000 thing. Last year, I had a water heater go out, Matt. By the time you're doing it, was a couple $1,000s. So there's lots of things that can come up in your life that would cause you to have to dip into your cash. Then you want to rebuild that stuff back up. So you have to have this safety net. It's something that it's just going to make you feel so much better when you have those things. Okay. So here's the next one where I think people get nervous or scared or feel like they need to know more than they do. And you have to become an investor. So what does that mean? If you're making, I keep using that example because the number's around $100,000. In my world, I would think that if you could do 20 or 25% off the top, which would be $20,000 or $25,000 into your savings and investing, if you started this young enough and early enough in your life, and you'd be shocked and amazed if you went to an investment calculator or retirement calculator, how much money you will have in the future. So I use my daughter as an example all the time. She's 25 years old. I've got a son who's 29. And I told both of them, if all they ever did, one of them has a corporate job, so he has a 401k at work. My daughter, as you guys know, works for me. So she's a real estate agent. So she does a Roth IRA. I said, if you guys just did those two things, maxed out your Roth, he maxed out his 401k, and you bought a house, and you started young enough, which they both did, there will be millions and millions and millions of dollars down the road. So if you would literally start off when you're 20 years old or 25 years old and go to an investment calculator and put in $7,000 or $7,500 a year, just divide it by 12, figure out what the monthly is. And then use the numbers, invest 8, 10, 12% as your gains over 25, 30, 45 years and play with those numbers. Start when you're 25 or start when you're 35 or start when you're 45. You'd be shocked at how time and compounding makes these numbers so ridiculously big that you'll have more money than you ever needed to deal with. And for my daughter to say, hey, I'm going to put $7,500 a year away into my 401 or to my Roth IRA, it's no skin off her back. She just does it. She doesn't think about it. She just pretends it's money and treats it like a bill. And off she goes. My son, who has a matching program at work, if he puts in 6% of his money, they match him 6%. So imagine if you made $100,000 a year and you put in $6,000 because you were putting in 6%, and your company was matching you $6,000, you were putting in $12,000 a year. Run those numbers through the investment calculator and see how much money you would actually have, and then you live on the rest. But for me, if you made $100,000 and let's say you did that $6,000 into your 401k, you still have $14,000 left over. And whether you want to put that into non-retirement accounts or start putting it in some really low risk investments so you can start saving up so you can start buying some real estate, whether it's your primary residence, whether it's investment property, whether it was commercial real estate, whether it was apartment complexes or fourplexes, there's lots of ways you can do this. And if you have to live, happen to live somewhere like I do, where buying a house could be expensive, you can buy investment or rental property in other parts of the country. Reach out to someone like myself. I know real estate agents all over the country, and I own homes in the Midwest. I know other people that own homes in other parts of the country, whether it's commercial, whatever it might be. And so here's the order for most of you that I would do this in, okay? So if you have a 401k match at work, you have to max that out. You're going to get 100% return. So make sure whatever your company's matching, you get that. Second, if you can also do a Roth IRA for $7,000 or $7,500 a year, do that and max that out. And then from there, you can go into a taxable brokerage account. So this would just be extra money you made over. So like in the example I just gave you, $100,000, 6% goes into your 401k. So that's $6,000. Let's say you put $7,500 into a Roth IRA. And now you still got a little bit of room because that's only $13,500. You got $6,500 left over, or even another $5,000 if you did 25%. And if you do all those things, some of it you can get to. That's why I like some non-retirement accounts, because that's cash I can actually get to that I could use for real estate investing. But if you do these things, I promise you, and then live on the rest, right? So if you have $75,000 or $80,000 left over of your $100,000, live on the rest and don't go into debt. Not debt for car loans, not debt for boats, not debt for whatever it might be. If you just did that, I promise you, when you get older in your 50s and 60s, you're going to be so set up financially that you're not going to even believe it, okay? So the market, the investment market, your long-term financial freedom number, it rewards you for time in the market and not time trying to figure out what is the get rich quick, get rich fast kind of situation. So just know you got to pay attention to that. And then lastly, when you start to get raises, okay, so what I keep telling people is when you start getting raises or bonuses or lump sums of money, you need to figure out how to turn those into assets. So a lot of people, what happens is they keep creating more payments for themselves. Then as they make more money, then they're like, oh, great, now I can afford another thing and another payment rather than using that money to save and invest. And so if you know that your overhead on the $100,000 scenario is $80,000, and now instead of making 100, you make 110 or 120, don't automatically increase it by that much. You might take all of that extra money for a little while and either pay off debts, create more investments and more assets for yourself, and do all these things. So here's the thing I see when people create more income for themselves, whether it's a side hustle or they get a raise or a bonus at work, is they go out and they upgrade the car, upgrade the house, get a better trip, go on a better vacation, and instead buy more investments, get more money in the stock market, get a rental property, get your retirement contributions built up. And if you want this to happen for yourselves, I can show you the specific numbers, but people, I think a lot of times think that they need more than they have. And so, for example, I was in a house just the other day. There's some people that bought a house for under $1 million, put a bunch of money in it, and now the house is probably worth $2.2 to $2.4 million, and they owe about $800,000. And they're really considering selling the house, taking that $1.23 million in cash, and going out and buying a really nice house on top of it, and then having no house payment and no overhead, and be able to take that house payment they have on $800,000 and use that for saving and investing. And if you did that, if these people do that, they will set themselves up financially forever. And they don't have to do it forever. They can do that in the short term. So when you get raises or you make more money or you get a side hustle or someone, fortunately for you, leaves you an inheritance and you get a lump sum of money, don't use it to buy nicer things. Use it to create assets for yourself that then those things could create more income for yourself. So here's the thing. So if you're 40 years old today and you're making $100,000, you're not behind, but you're not that time frame I keep talking about, that long-term time frame you don't have anymore. So you've got to make these next 15 years matter between 40 and 55. And now for me, I'm really going to make it count between 55 and 65. So I will be set up financially forever. But here's the thing, okay? You got to make those paychecks count. You hear the word retire all the time, and I think it's not about retiring. It's about creating financial freedom. I don't want to retire. I don't want to work as hard. I don't want to work as much, but I'm able to do that because I've set myself up financially. And the goal is, to me, this is my goal, is to make work optional. Makes work a whole lot more fun when work becomes optional and you have that financial freedom. So, what can I tell you? There's the way to do it. So here's the difference is, if you go to that financial calculator and see how much money you need to start when you're 20 or 25 versus 40, it's a big difference. And so just know, the earlier and sooner you start, the bigger amounts of money you can do, the better. And it's not too late. You can win this game of money and finance. You can make all this stuff happen for yourself, and just know that these are things I would do. And we're going to give you lots more videos on the things that I would do or that I have done that can help you on your journey to financial freedom.